Have you noticed how easy it is to disappear into the crowd? You scroll through your phone, and without thinking, you laugh at the same jokes as everyone else, you repeat the same phrases, you nod along with opinions that don't even feel like your own. You dress the way you're told is normal, you chase the dreams the culture told you to want, you silence doubts that might make you stand out. And slowly, without ever deciding, you become less of yourself and more of everyone else. At first, it feels safe. There's comfort in blending in. There's relief in being accepted, in not being the one who disrupts the order, in not risking rejection. But safety always comes with a price. And Nietzsche, one of the most dangerous thinkers of all time, understood this with brutal clarity. The crowd is where individuality goes to die. Look closely at your life. How many choices have you really made freely? Did you pick that career, or was it handed down to you as the respectable option? Do you love what you love because it calls to you, or because the majority has already declared it worthy? Even your silence, when you avoid saying what you believe because it might offend, is it silence born of wisdom or silence born of fear? You think you're safe inside the herd, but what you've lost is invisible. The spark that makes you different, the strength that only comes from standing apart, the truth of who you really are. This video is about that truth. It is about the courage to stop following, the pain that forges you, and the rare freedom that comes only when you dare to step away from the crowd. Because if you don't, you'll spend your life living someone else's story. The first thing you must understand is how deeply the herd has shaped you. Nietzsche saw it in his time, and if you look around today, it is even more obvious. Human beings have always been tribal creatures. Our ancestors survived not by standing out, but by blending in. In evolutionary psychology, this is known as conformity bias, the instinct to imitate the majority because, in ancient times, to separate yourself from the group was to risk death. The tribe provided food, shelter, and protection. To be excluded was to be condemned. That instinct still lives inside you. When you scroll through social media and feel an urge to like what everyone else likes, even when you don't care, you are carrying 1,000 generations of survival instinct in your fingertips. But Nietzsche warned that what once kept us alive now slowly kills the spirit. The herd mentality no longer protects you from wild beasts, it enslaves you to the judgment of others. Modern psychology proves this with brutal clarity. Solomon Asch's famous conformity experiment in the 1950s showed that people would deliberately give the wrong answer to an obvious question just because everyone else in the room did. Think about that. The eyes see the truth, the brain knows the truth, but the fear of standing alone makes the tongue lie. That is herd morality at work. You silence yourself not because you are wrong, but because you dread isolation more than deception. Nietzsche saw the herd as a prison disguised as safety. He called it the morality of the crowd, a morality that rewards obedience, sameness, politeness, and punishes independence. Today you see it everywhere. People afraid to voice unpopular opinions, workers nodding in meetings while thinking the opposite, entire generations imitating the lifestyles flashed before them on screens. The irony is that the herd does not care about you. The crowd cheers one day, then abandons you the next. Approval is as fleeting as wind, yet people surrender their authenticity for it every single day. Look within yourself. How many times have you felt a thought rise inside you, sharp, original, daring, only to bury it before anyone could hear? How many times have you laughed along when you wanted to be silent, agreed when you wanted to resist, pretended to enjoy something only because everyone else did? That is the herd living through you. And here lies the tragedy. The more you bend to the crowd, the more you dissolve into it, until one day you realize you no longer know who you are. And yet Nietzsche did not condemn the herd blindly. He knew it was the default state of man, the beginning point, but never the destination. To live and die as part of the mass is to betray the possibility of becoming. Modern neuroscience even hints at why. Studies on brain imaging show that when a person defies group opinion, the brain activates the amygdala, the same region tied to fear and survival. It feels threatening to stand alone. But the prefrontal cortex, the region tied to higher reasoning, also lights up, meaning that resisting the herd awakens the very part of the brain that defines human intelligence. To choose independence is literally to elevate your consciousness. Nietzsche's question was not whether the herd exists, it was whether you would remain in it. And this is where his philosophy becomes dangerous, because once you see the bars of the cage, you can no longer pretend you are free. But how does one escape this invisible prison? How do you step away from the safety of the crowd without collapsing under the weight of loneliness? Nietzsche believed the answer begins with courage, the courage to think for yourself. And that is what we must explore next. If this content is resonating with you, consider subscribing. I make videos that help you see the world and yourself more clearly. Thank you. To leave the herd is not simply a matter of walking away, it is a matter of daring to think. Nietzsche admired those rare individuals he called free spirits, men and women who questioned the very foundations of the values handed down to them. And if you look honestly at your own life, you will see how difficult this really is. From the moment you were born, you were surrounded by inherited beliefs about what success means, what a good life looks like, what you should fear, what you should desire. They were not chosen by you. They were absorbed like air you did not know you were breathing. To question them feels like blasphemy, yet Nietzsche insisted that it is the only path to authenticity. Science has confirmed how powerful these inherited scripts truly are. Neuroscientists studying cognitive development speak of neural pathways of expectation, grooves carved into the brain from repeated cultural conditioning. When you are told from childhood that success equals education, career, house, marriage, children, the brain wires itself to associate deviation from this path with failure. This is why, even when you sense that your truth lies elsewhere, you feel guilt for not obeying the expected formula. In psychology, this is called cognitive dissonance, the internal war between the authentic self and the social self, and it is in that battlefield where Nietzsche calls you to stand firm. Consider the simple act of questioning. Imagine you are told that happiness is found in material wealth. To most, this is unquestionable. But the free spirit asks, is this true, or is this the inheritance of a consumer culture that thrives on my compliance? He resists the instinct to nod along. He holds the tension of doubt. And in that moment, he takes his first step away from the herd. Nietzsche believed this kind of courage was not optional but necessary, because a life unexamined is a life wasted. Think of the Milgram experiment on obedience in the 1960s. Ordinary people, instructed by authority, inflicted what they believed were painful electric shocks on strangers. Many obeyed simply because they were told to. Only a minority refused. What does this reveal? That most of us are trained to obey rather than to think. But Nietzsche's free spirit is precisely that minority. The one who says no, the one who resists, the one who trusts his own conscience above the pressure of authority or majority. The free spirit is often lonely. He will be misunderstood, criticized, even mocked. Modern sociology shows that those who defy group norms face what is called social sanction, subtle or overt punishment meant to push them back into conformity. You see it today on social media, where dissenting voices are not debated but attacked, ridiculed, cancelled. But Nietzsche argued that this loneliness is not a curse, it is the price of freedom. Only in solitude can you begin to ask, what do I truly believe? What do I truly want? Who am I when no crowd is watching? It is in this crucible of solitude that the seeds of individuality are planted. Yet Nietzsche went further. He said that thinking differently is not enough. You must also endure the suffering that comes with it. For the moment you step apart from the herd, you will not only be lonely, you will be tested. And in his view, those tests are not obstacles, but the very fire through which strength is born. And so we move to the next truth. That suffering, far from being a sign of weakness, is the very condition by which you grow beyond the crowd. It is here, in the embrace of hardship, that Nietzsche's vision reveals its most brutal and most liberating reality. Nietzsche did not shy away from the brutal truth. Suffering is not something to be avoided. It is something to be endured, even embraced. He wrote, "What does not kill me makes me stronger," not as a comforting slogan, but as a demand. The modern world has conditioned you to believe that comfort is the goal of life. We insulate ourselves with conveniences, curate perfect images to avoid criticism, and remain silent to dodge conflict. But every attempt to escape discomfort robs you of the very strength you claim to seek. Science supports this in ways Nietzsche could only anticipate. In physiology, the principle of hormesis explains that organisms grow stronger when exposed to small doses of stress. Muscles, for example, only develop when they are torn and rebuilt through resistance. The immune system strengthens when challenged by pathogens. Even in neuroscience, researchers have shown that stress, when faced consciously and not chronically avoided, triggers neuroplasticity, rewiring the brain to adapt and endure. What Nietzsche intuited was this: the soul obeys the same law. It is not the avoidance of hardship, but the confrontation with it that forges resilience. Yet what happens when you refuse this confrontation? You blend in, you nod along, you bury your originality under the weight of acceptance. You tell yourself you are keeping the peace, but in truth you are surrendering your growth. The one who avoids criticism never builds courage. The one who hides their talent because it is too different never discovers mastery. The one who fears rejection becomes their own jailer. Modern psychology calls this avoidance coping, a behavior that reduces immediate discomfort but deepens long-term weakness. Nietzsche saw it as the morality of the herd, the willingness to trade one's own becoming for the illusion of safety. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you allowed suffering to teach you? Or have you been running from it, distracting yourself, numbing yourself, pretending to be unbothered while quietly breaking inside? Nietzsche would tell you this is not living. It is existing in shadows. True life begins when you step into the fire, when you allow yourself to be criticized, when you risk standing alone, when you endure the rejection of the crowd and discover that you are still here. Consider also the psychology of post-traumatic growth. Studies reveal that individuals who face severe adversity often report deeper purpose, stronger relationships, and greater appreciation for life. Pain, when integrated, becomes transformation. But if you flee from it, repress it, deny it, you remain fragile, always at the mercy of the next storm. Nietzsche demanded more of you. To see suffering not as a curse, but as a forge, the fire in which your individuality is hammered into existence. This is why he despised resignation. To accept the herd's approval as enough is to live half dead. To endure hardship in pursuit of your own path is to live fully. He knew that only by being tested, only by being wounded, can you uncover the depth of your own power. In a paradox that unsettles the comfortable, Suffering is not the enemy of happiness, it is the doorway to it. And here lies the subtle but necessary transition. For Nietzsche did not speak of suffering for its own sake. He saw it as the path to a greater destination, the creation of the self. To endure pain without transformation is mere endurance. To endure pain and become through it, that is the secret. Which brings us to his most dangerous and liberating command, to become who you truly are. And it is to this final, daring step that we now turn. To Nietzsche, the culmination of philosophy, of suffering, of solitude, was this: become who you are. At first, the phrase sounds deceptively simple, but if you pause, you will feel its weight. It is not a call to comfort. It is not permission to remain as you are. It is a command to strip away everything that is borrowed, everything that is imitation, everything that belongs not to you, but to the herd. It is an invitation to stand naked before life, without masks, without borrowed values, and to create yourself. Science lends credence to this demand. In developmental psychology, the concept of self-actualization, made famous by Abraham Maslow, describes the highest human need, the drive to realize one's unique potential. Yet studies show that fewer than 15% of people ever reach this stage, because most remain trapped in conformity and fear. They seek approval more than authenticity. They live as performances rather than presences. Nietzsche's call was the antidote. Stop asking what the crowd admires and start asking what your soul requires. Look around at the world of appearances. People carefully curate their lives online with filters and false smiles. They display success not as it is lived, but as it is staged. This is the herd's final trick, convincing you to wear a mask so long that you begin to believe it is your face. But what happens when you dare to remove it? Neuroscience suggests that authenticity reduces stress and increases well-being, because living in contradiction, saying one thing while feeling another, creates measurable tension in the nervous system. To become who you are is not only a philosophical act, it is a biological necessity. Nietzsche spoke of creating new values, of becoming the author of your own morality. This does not mean rebelling for rebellion's sake. It means recognizing that the rules you were given about success, love, happiness, may not be yours to keep. It means the courage to say, I will not live by borrowed scripts. I will live by a script I write myself. And yes, this is terrifying. For when you stop following the crowd, you lose its applause. But what you gain is infinitely greater. The discovery that your worth was never in their approval, but in your existence itself. Consider the psychological research on authenticity and well-being. People who score higher in measures of authentic living report stronger relationships, greater life satisfaction, and higher resilience against stress. Why? Because when you no longer chase acceptance, you are free to invest your energy into becoming. You are no longer drained by the performance of masks, you are strengthened by the clarity of truth. Nietzsche knew this before science could prove it. The individual who dares to be himself is untouchable, not because life ceases to hurt him, but because no wound can strip him of his essence. And so I must turn to you. How long will you continue to follow the crowd? How long will you trade your uniqueness for the cheap comfort of fitting in? There is a point where silence becomes betrayal, not of others, but of yourself. Nietzsche's words are not meant to decorate your mind. They are meant to disturb you into action. So let me ask you directly. Are you ready to stop following the crowd? Are you ready to pay the price of being misunderstood in order to reclaim the reward of being yourself? If you are, then write it below in the comments. I choose to become who I am. Let that be your first act of rebellion, not just for me to see, but for you to declare publicly, to affirm with words what you are beginning to feel inside. Because the world does not need another imitation. It needs the rare individual who dares to live without masks. The crowd will always be there, waiting to swallow you. But the question Nietzsche leaves in your hands is simple, and yet it will define your life. Will you remain part of the herd, or will you finally, courageously, become yourself?